So it's like 2:30 Thursday morning because I have had no time to film this video because I've been a good student who does homework and whatnot. So I'm tired. But this is what we do. We make a video for every Thursday. So here we are. I'm going to be talking about choices. Haven't talked about that in a hot minute. Because I fell out of playing it for a little bit just because all of my favorite stories were sort of just like wrapping up. And they brought in all these really like not fun like stories that I didn't like, so I just stopped playing it for a while. I've gotten back into it. And you know what story we're going to talk about today? My two first loves. And a lot of people online want to talk shit about this story, but I am kind of obsessed with it. It's so awful, but like in its being awful, it's sort of looped back around to being good. But we're gonna talk about it really quick. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't need to, because the story is the most basic story you have ever heard in your entire life. There's this girl, she goes to high school, she's in love with her best friend since like childhood. But then said best friend gets in a relationship with her best friend so that she has to go find somebody else, but then like her best friend actually is in love with her, blah 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 blah. It's a whole thing. Let's give them names just for the sake of it, because I want to refer to them by their name because I don't want to have to get into it. I play the main character, the character that you play as. I named her after myself because, again, if you're not playing these as self-insert fanfics, I don't know what you're doing. So the main character's name is Sam. The best friend, I just left his name as Mason because I usually, when they give me an opportunity to name other people, I just leave them as they are because I don't really like care. Because like while it is a self-insert, it's not like a real life AU. Okay, I'm not gonna pretend like these people like are my actual friends. Like I get it's like a fake story. So like best friend, his name stayed as Mason. My girl best friend, I kept her name as Ava. But the bad boy, who is the whole like game changer in this story, his name was Noah, but he did not look like a Noah, so I named him Jackson because I think that name's way better for him. And this will get important later, that's why I'm mentioning this now, but I gave the faces of all of the other characters that you could design, I gave them I made them black. That sounds weird if you've never played the game, but you can usually choose like what their face looks like, and that usually comes in different like races. You can usually make them either white, black, or something in the middle, like usually like Asian-ish, sometimes Latin, sometimes Hispanic. It's like something in the middle. And I usually just go by whichever design looks the best, and to me all of the black character designs look the best for all these characters. So all of the characters in this are black, including myself, but I don't use the black character design because I want it to look as much like me as possible, and I am not dark skinned, and that feels weirdly appropriative, and I'm not going to do that. It becomes important later. If you've played the story, you know why it's important, but we'll get into that later. This story isn't like good. Like a lot of people are talking about how they've done stories like this in the past. They've done like teen romance, teen goes to high school, teen drama stories, and like there are better ones. Like High School Story will always be my favorite. I love High School Story so much, but like I don't think that the story is bad. I think it's stupid. I don't think it's like a bad story. It's interesting. They did try different things. I don't think it's like unoriginal, even though it's one of the most overused tropes like ever. But I'm like, I really like it. I don't know why. It's a different format than like the other stories, and I don't know why they did it this way. Like usually each episode's about like 14 to 20 minutes. Each episode for this is only like a couple minutes long, like 4 to 5 minutes. And I really like that because I usually don't have time to like sit down and play like 14 to 20 minutes of like a story on my phone. So like whenever I get a notification that I have more keys, I usually just go in and I play a new chapter really quick. And I think that's lovely, wonderful. I do think that's silly because now we're at like chapter 67, and I'm just like, you could have just consolidated some of these together and not have to do this, but to each their own, whatever. I think, let me get into what I think of all the characters really quick. Mason, the one thing that I hate about all of these stories in which you're in love with your best friend is that is just truly where their personality ends. They never go any further than explaining why you like them, other than, oh, they're your best friend, you've known them forever, as if that's supposed to just explain everything. And I'm like, I never like the best friend characters. Like in High School Story, what I was just talking about, when you get like Rory is like the love interest, and I just did not like her at all. She was so boring when like Sky was right there. Like, how do you choose Rory, who has no personality? Literally no personality ever. Over Sky, who has all the family drama, or AJ, who has all the family drama. It was just, I don't, like, there's nothing interesting that comes along with being with Mason. He's so boring. And he wants to join the army? Disgusting. I would never. And he's so possessive. He is so possessive of the main character, and it is annoying. Like I just said, like, it starts, the first few chapters are like, you come back from like summer break or something, and then your best friend Mason, he's like, yo, I have something to tell you, and then you find out he's dating Ava, your best friend, and like, that's fine. Like, the whole thing is you're supposed to be like heartbroken because you were in love with him and you never told him and blah 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 blah, but like, you need to accept that if somebody makes a choice to be in a relationship with somebody who's not like you need to respect that, because they don't owe you anything. Okay, you're not entitled to them. So I accepted that. As a rational, logical person, I was like, okay, he's in a relationship with somebody, that's fine. But then when I go and make moves on Jackson, he's like, you can't do that, he's dangerous. And I'm like, sir, you were the one in the relationship. You can't do this. You can't get into a relationship with my best friend. And then when I want to move on, because you didn't choose me, you want to come back in and ruin it for me. That's what you want to do. And also, his dad hates me. His dad hates me. Principal Jennings fucking hates my guts. So why would I even think about getting a relationship with him when he brings literally nothing to the table besides emotional insecurity, daddy issues, a love of the army, a love of the American military, football, and possessiveness. Like, why? When Jackson is right there. Or Ava even. Oh my god. Let's get into Ava really quick. Ava, I felt that something was fishy from the first fucking second. I could tell that she was gay. Because, like, the second that Mason was like, I don't know, it just feels weird when we're together, because, like, when we're out in public, she's all over me, but then when we're, like, alone, she doesn't, like, want to be with me, and I'm like, that sounds like a comp-het relationship to me. And I was right. And she was in love with me. But then the main character wanted to pull some shit with her that Mason... You have to get like 40 chapters in to like get to this part of the story, 40 or 50 chapters. But Ava, like, sort of kind of confesses her feelings for the main character, where it's sort of just like implied that she does like her, and then the main character has like another thing on her plate where she's in like a love like diamond, and it's a whole thing. But Ava does the smart thing and she moves on, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna be in a relationship with somebody else, and she gets in a relationship with, I think her name's Bela. That's how I've been saying it. But then the main character wants to be like, but what about me? But I thought you were interested in me, even though I didn't want to sort out any of my feelings, and I just expected you to wait around for me to figure things out. But what about me? And I was like, shut up. You cannot be stringing along two guys and her. No, she's moved on. She's ready. I don't think she has, though. If you saw her at that winter fundraiser thing when she was just trying to hang out with the main character and not her actual girlfriend who was right there, another relationship just to get her mind off of it. But it's fine. I'm not going to pursue anything because I have already made my decision. I made my decision back in like chapter 10 that it was Jackson. Jackson 100% all the way. But it's so annoying. Just like all the times when the main character is like, yeah, like she's there with her girlfriend, but I can't help but be jealous. And I'm like, you had an opportunity. You had a full opportunity. And you let her go. You cannot be mad with the choices that you've already made. Like, if you wanted to be with her, you could have just said something. But you didn't. So you have no right to be mad. That annoying. And Mason does that shit all the fucking time. The worst part was in the first beginning chapters when everyone wanted to demonize Jackson and then like not tell me why. Like my dad, I hate that father character. He's an awful father. Truly an awful, awful father. And I don't know why Mac or the main character ever listened to him. Because he's like, okay, you're grounded because of something stupid, because I'm an awful father who likes to be a dictator around this house, and you don't get to do anything. But I'm gonna be emotionally distant as well and go to work. And I'm like, if he's not here to see that you're here, then why don't you just leave? Like, I don't get the thing about being grounded if there's nobody there to like make sure you're at home. I don't like that character. I think that the dad is very annoying, and I don't think that Mac or the main character should ever respect him because he's not home. But whatever. This isn't about him. But everybody wants to demonize Jackson. And they didn't want to explain why. And like, in my mind, because I take games like this very seriously, the idea behind it is that it's set in the real world. So I try to apply normal human reality logic to it. And in that way, because I made Jackson black, the whole thing that was like the only evidence that he was a bad person was because he went to juvie. And I was like, a black man in America? That's just racism, sweetie. You are all just being racist. Which is hard to say when I also made Mason black, but definitely for my father. I'm like, you can't just be like, he's dangerous and you have to stay away from him. He went to juvie. And I'm like, but he's just black. If you're not gonna tell me the reason why he went to juvie, then I'm just gonna assume it was racism because it probably was. And I'm just gonna move on because I've talked to him and he seems like a fine person. So I don't understand why we're making this big thing and you're trying to fearmonger me into not talking to him when he has shown me no evidence of being a bad person. So I think y'all are just racist and you can go away with that. But so that was a whole thing. For like a good 30 chapters, nobody wanted to tell me why I was supposed to be afraid of him. And I was just assuming that they were racist. And like, I don't think that once you realize what he did, I don't think that goes away because I don't think he did anything wrong. But Mason and Jackson have this rivalry because of this. And it's very annoying to watch because it's very clear that this main character is trying to get to know this other person, even if it's not on a romantic level. And Mason feels so possessive and so entitled to all of her time, even though he's in a whole ass relationship. Oh my god. And the whole point let's talk about the party. The first party in which Mason and Ava break up, spoiler alert, they break up, of course they do. But it's a whole thing where like, I don't even remember what we're playing. Spin the bottle? No. Truth or Dare? Something like that. Where it's like, I'm in a circle with Mason and then we kiss like a little bit and then Ava sees like a video of it and then she like freaks out. Which like, rightfully so. If you see your best friend kissing your boyfriend, that would be an issue. But she also like didn't trust him from the beginning and I'm like, but you had good reason not to trust him. He didn't like you. But the whole thing in that situation is that I did not choose to kiss him. If I had the option, I would have said, no thank you. You are in a relationship and also I don't want to. So I wanted to make that very clear distinction in the story that he kissed me and I did not kiss him. It was not a mutual exchange. It was not an agreed upon two-party situation, but I was not allowed to do that because the main character is in love with Mason. It's such a weird story to play when I don't like Mason at all. I think I would actively hate him if I made him white because of the racism and also things I'll get to later. But in this story, I just dislike him. In the way that I made him, I just dislike him. But that's a whole thing. And then, because of that whole party fiasco, Mason and Ava break up. But apparently Mason broke up with Ava, even though I thought Ava initiated it. I don't remember. This happened many chapters ago. But then, like, there's this whole conversation blow up with all of the characters where Mason's like, well, I broke up with Ava to be with Sam. And I'm like, I did not ask you to do that, sir. Don't put that on me. I did not ask you to do that. I did not ask you to do that. I hate how he just does things and assumes that I will be appreciative or care as if I asked him to do that. No, you did not have to do that. I think that was when he was arguing with Jackson. I think Jackson said something like, why do you care so much? And he was like, it's because I broke up with her to be with her. And I was like, no. I'm not interested in you in the slightest. I'm interested in the hot guy who could get me into clubs with a fake ID and his motorcycle. He is the epitome of the bad boy trope that I love. Like a bad guy, but secretly a really good person. Him with his sister Hazel. Love that man. Wow. I think I love Jackson as a character, and that's why I love this story so much. And I think it would be a very different story if he was white. Because yeah, if you told me like a white man went to juvie, I'd be like, that's a bit suspicious. Maybe something is dangerous with him. Maybe I will fear for him. Because he's black, I'm like, no, I see nothing wrong with the situation. That's just racism. But Jackson. Let's get into Jackson. I haven't talked about Jackson because the story really in my heart revolves around Jackson. So I need to get those peripheries, the peripherals out of the way before I can talk about Jackson. The love interest, my favorite character, Jackson Harris. He is everything. He is everything. He is the bad boy. He left school for like, I think 2 years, a year, 2 years, because he went to juvie for something that his brother did. We'll get into his brother Elijah. But he's supposed to just be like a nice, kind guy, and he is, and he loves his sister and his mom, who's overworked all the time, and he's like sweet and like emotionally like, I think he lets his emotions get the better of him sometimes. But most of the times, I think most of the time when Jackson blows up, it's because of Mason. Like if Mason wasn't there butting into all of our fucking relationship moments, then there would be no issue. I don't think that Jackson is at fault with anything. Like there's this whole issue at homecoming where I chose to go with Jackson because I'm not interested in Mason at all. That I'm there with Jackson dancing with the date that I chose to go with. And then Mason comes up and it's like, where's my dance? And I'm like, we're not here together. You don't get one. He butts in, and then I say, no thank you. And then me and Jackson go hang out some more. And then Mason comes back again, and Jackson's like, what the fuck, dude, get out of here. And then Mason wants to blow up at him, being like, I have a right to be protective after what you did, bah, 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 bah. We'll get into why they had a big falling out. They used to be friends. Spoiler alert, I don't really care. Jack is also on the football team. That's a whole other conflict where like Mason's like the star of the football team. He has to live up to his dad's legacy, big Troy Bolton sort of thing. But Jackson's also on the football team, and he also wants to be a quarterback. And I just think that's really, there's something about a bad boy who's also on the football team. Like you would think he'd be like a broody, artsy type. No, he's a jock. Love that man. But they get into it at homecoming, and then like they like start like fist fighting, and then like the main character feels like so hurt and like upset over this for some reason, and I'm like, this seems like a Mason problem. It seems like you were there with your date, you said no thanks Mason, don't want to hang out, I'm here with my date, and Mason wanted to start shit. That's what it looked like to me. But the main character wanted to make it like a two-party situation. She was like mad at both of them equally, and I was like, Jackson didn't do anything wrong. Jackson was just there. Jackson was just there hanging out with you, and then you want to be mad at him for also fighting? Like, he was well within his right to throw hands at Mason. Mason kept fucking butting in. I don't know. I have no issue with Jackson or anything that he's ever done. So I'm very biased. Jackson, outside of that sort of like fiasco drama, was just generally like a cool, kind person. He took me to a punk show on his motorcycle. I'm sorry, that's all you need. What does Mason bring to the story? Literally nothing. But Jackson is just really cool. And he's basically trying to hold his whole family together. He has a little sister named Hazel who I adore. He has a mom who I adore who works like all the time to trying to keep their family like together. Oh, another fucking layer to the story that I think is very important. Mason comes from like a rich family. I don't know where his dad gets all this money as like the principal of a high school. I don't think we've ever met his mom. I assume he has a mom. He doesn't have a tragic backstory like the main character whose mom is dead. But they like live in a mansion and they have tons of fucking money. Jackson does not, because black people living in America, disenfranchisement and all that. The story has so many more layers when you make them a different race than what they could have been. Like, there's so many things in the story that are like actively impacted by race, and like the fact that you can make these characters whatever race you want really just boggles my mind. I don't know how you can tell these stories and just not think about how the race plays into their character. We'll get to it though, there's a big thing coming. But Jackson's family does not have a lot of money. They're struggling to make ends meet. His mom's working all the time. Blah, 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 blah. But he also has a deadbeat older brother. His name is Elijah, and Elijah fucking sucks. I never trusted that bitch from day one. We first meet him not knowing that he's Jackson's brother because my sister, Mac, got into like a bad crowd because she's like the emo artsy type. I wish I was playing with Mac. Mac is so much more interesting. and she was like out tagging cars with Elijah, and I went with her because I was worried about her. And then we get busted by the cops and we get arrested. Also, this is the number one reason why I hate our dad. When we get arrested and like they find out that we didn't actually tag any cars or destroy anything because we were just sort of there, we call our dad and they explain the situation to him, and he's like, "Well, I'm not picking them up. They can stay the night at the police station." And I'm like, "Sorry? That's neglect. That's active neglect. That's like child neglect. Like, you can say that it's not because they're at a police station, but like, if we were also just like in a cold, dingy room and we called our father and we were like, 'Hey, can you please pick us up?' And he was like, 'No, sorry, you shouldn't have been out there.' That's neglect. That's abuse." And then he had the audacity to come back at us after that was done and still be mad when he left us at a police station. I don't know. I'm a big ACAB person, so maybe that's just my personal preference, but if somebody that I was supposed to care about and was supposed to care for me left me at a police station overnight, I would never talk to them again. That's so disrespectful. I don't know how I don't know how they were so mad they were just so worried about what their dad was gonna think. Like, the main character and Mac were just like, "Oh, Dad's really gonna be mad at us." And like, he literally left you at a police station. He left you overnight in a cold police station knowing you had school the next morning. That's an awful father. Like, no. That on top of all the emotional neglect and abuse, like, literally no. He's an awful father. Do not respect him. That's just what I think, though. But going back to Elijah gets us busted by the cops. And then when we're talking to Jackson about his older brother, he shows us a picture on the phone, and then it shows up as that character. I audibly gasped. I lost it. I was like, "That's your brother?" And all of the drama just heightened a little bit more, because we now know that, like, Elijah, this bad person, is now connected to me in this way. And then Elijah comes back in the story a little bit later. He comes back because he dropped out of school after the incident that I will get to in a little bit. And then he like tries to pretend like he's trying to shape up his image. I did not trust him for a second. You know why? Because Jackson kept saying, "I don't trust him." And I was like, "I trust your judgment." And everyone was like, "Let's give him a chance." And I was like, "No, Jackson says not to trust him. Jackson knows him best. I trust Jackson's judgment." But then you started to bamboozle Jackson. But I, with a clear head and no emotional attachment to this man, was like, "No, you said what you said. I do not trust this man." And then it ended up being right, and Elijah stole a bunch of money from the fundraiser that we were trying to get. And he screwed us all over, because that's what Elijah does. But it turns out that Elijah like gave the money to his mom like anonymously, and I was like, I knew he was gonna do that, obviously. And Jackson explains to his mom that that's where the money came from. They have to return it because Jackson's a good person. But his mom's like, "No, we need this money." I'm like, I fully understand that. I get that. It's hard. Capitalism is evil. But again, that does not excuse what Elijah did. Elijah did a shitty thing. But especially since he tried to make all these people believe that he was like a good person, especially Jackson, who thought he had his big brother back in his life. So rude. Why would you do that to my man? But you know who really screwed over my man? Mason and his deadbeat fucking father. I would punch him in the face if I could. The incident. Let's get into the incident. In freshman year, we're all seniors at this point, by the way. In freshman year, Mason and Jackson, best friends, homies on the football team. They get really close. Elijah, anything involving Elijah we know is bad news, knows that Mason's family has tons of money. And he's like, "Yo, we just need to break into their house, steal a little bit of their money, because I know where his safe is. And they'll never be none the wiser. Rich people are rich, and they probably got their money from like really bad places anyways, and and they won't even miss it. Like, we need this money." And like, I don't like Elijah. I think Elijah's bad, but I think he was 100% correct in that assumption. I 100% do not like Mason or the Jennings, Mason's family. I think that they're bad people, and I also think anybody who's rich, when there are people like Jackson's family who are like literally dying because they're poor, they're bad people. Rich people are inherently bad. And that's what Elijah was saying. So I think Elijah was 100% in the right to say that. I agree. I think that rich people are bad. But what ensued is the real yikes of the situation. Jackson goes to the house with Elijah to try to break in. Elijah's like, "Yo, if this all goes south, meet me at the bus stop." Surprise, surprise, it goes south. Jackson uses the alarm code that he got from Mason, tries to break in. His dad is there with a shotgun, shoots Jackson, and Jackson runs off into the woods. Elijah also bolts. Mason finds Jackson in the woods, takes him to the hospital. Elijah, nowhere to be found, truly vanishes off the face of the earth right after this incident because he fucking sucks and left his brother to die. Now, this is where race, I think, plays a very important part in the story, and how that they could just make a race-neutral story of this, I don't understand. But Mason and Jackson are in the hospital because Jackson just got shot. The police come in because, of course, Mason's dad called the police on them. And then they see two black men just sitting in the hospital, and they assume that both of them had committed this crime. They start to arrest them brutally, as the police do. And then Mason's dad comes in and is like, hey, that's my son. He didn't commit the crime. And then the police stop trying to break his arm and is like, hey, sorry about that, sport. Fucking hate cops. But they still have Jackson there. And then one of the police like tries to like put him in handcuffs or something, and then Jackson's like, hey, you're hurting me, please don't do that. And then they're like, stop resisting. And then they put him in a chokehold and choke him out. And then Mason is there just being like, hey, don't do that, that's bad. But Mason's dad, a black man, stands there, watches the situation, and is like, better him than you, let's go. And then they leave him. They leave him. And in his final breath, in which he could have easily have died from this, and in his final breath, he's calling out for his sister and his mom, and I'm just like, we could have not seen this scene. They did put a warning before to be like, this is police brutality, you could skip it, but I needed to see it. I needed to be like, what are they gonna do with these black men? And this was a situation involving all black men, so I don't know, like, I could not imagine how different that scene would have been if you made both of them white. Imagine if I made Mason white and Jackson black. I would literally never forgive Mason. I still don't really like him after this. Because imagine if Mason was white and he just watched a black man be choked out by the police and did nothing. That's racism. That is racism. The only reason that this isn't racism is because I chose to not make Mason white. Not knowing that this was going to happen. I can't believe that they wrote basically race-neutral characters and put this scene in this story. And then Mason and Jackson make up because Jackson feels like so guilty by trying to rob them. And I'm like, what? Even if you did rob them, even if you robbed them of every single cent in their bank account, there is no excuse on the face of this earth that would make it okay for Mason and his father to watch you be choked out by the cops and literally do nothing about it. No. I cannot forgive Mason or his father for that instance, who I already hate, for doing that to Jackson. I don't know how you see that scene and you're just like, oh yeah, Mason. No. No. I don't know how you can watch that and be like, Mason is the one I would like to choose. Yes, what? That scene fucked me up. That scene fucked me up. I don't know how they did that scene. I don't know how they could have, I don't know how they, like, wrote that scene and then later had them be friends. Imagine knowing that when you could have easily have been killed by the police, there was somebody standing right there that could have done something for you that you thought was your friend, and then he just doesn't do anything. I don't care how mad you are at them, you don't do that. If he was ever your friend at all, you can get over the trying to rob you thing. You can't get over someone letting you die. No. No. Literally no. I would know. That's some fucked shit. That's some fucked shit right there. That scene very much upset me and cemented Mason as an awful person in my mind, along with his father, who I already hated. But that is the big conflict. That is why Mason and Jackson stopped being friends. But they frame it as if Jackson's in the wrong, which, like, I get. Like, if Mason was black and Jackson was white, I would understand that. But, like, you see, I don't know how you can, like, see the story and then just take race out of it. I don't know how that happens. Because in my mind, this is very much a race prevalent story. Like, race definitely plays a part in, like, classism, how the police treat you, how people are viewed, how you are viewed as a criminal. Like, it's all affected by race. So I don't know how they rate just, like, race neutral characters, but I don't know how, in what world, for really anybody, if we have to take race out of this, how you can be like, yes, I robbed you, but you watched me almost get murdered and you didn't do anything about it. Like, I don't know how in that instance Jackson is in the wrong, because he almost robbed him. Your dad shot him and then let him be choked out by the police. No. And they still want to have the main character be like, but I'm in love with Mason. No, you're not. No, you're not. You know why? Because I control you and I am not. I hate that man. Hate Mason. Hate Mason and everything he stands for. Because Jackson has been nothing but kind and caring and truly the most emotionally intelligent person in the story. Because while the main character likes to be really wishy-washy on her feelings and likes to like not make any decisions, even though I was very clear on my decisions in my heart from like chapter 2, she likes to be like, oh, I don't know, but I like both of you. And I'm like, in a very adult world, I'd be like, okay, throuple, that means we all just date each other. We solve this very simply, but no, I hate Mason. I don't know why I'm not allowed to just be like, no, I don't like Mason, I'm not interested in him at all. No, thank you. That's just not an option. I have to pretend to still be interested in Mason, which I hate so much. But while the main character likes to be wishy-washy on her feelings, and Mason likes to date other people and then also still be possessive over somebody else in his little world, Jackson is truly one of the most emotionally mature people. Like, sometimes he'll get a bit jealous, as he should, because if you're just looking at this from Jackson's perspective, there's somebody who you met who you did not know was associated with Mason, I'm pretty sure. And then you're just trying to be like, oh, I like this girl, I would like to get to know her. And then this asshole, who you already don't like, tries to come in and ruin that. Like, I would also get upset. Like, I think he was fully within his right to be upset. Mason, no. Jackson, yes. But on top of that, there's many conversations in which the main character is like, I'm just so sorry about all of this Mason drama, I just don't know what's going on. And Jackson's like, it's okay, I get it, you guys have history, but like, I'm here too and I also have feelings, so maybe like sort this out. Like, he's very reasonable with all the things that he says, unlike Mason, who's just like, this guy is dangerous, you can't trust him. Jackson is the best on every level. This is truly just After We Collide. Have you seen that movie? I have not, but I watched a video essay about that movie. I was really disappointed when if we can do a quick After We Collide tangent, I was really disappointed when I heard that Dylan Sprouse was going to be in that movie because he is my favorite Sprouse twin. I said it, I never liked Cole. Never. Not even in the Zach and Cody days. Like, Cody was, it was always Zach for me. And now he comes back looking scrumptious. And he's in this movie and I was like, honey, you can do better than this movie. But he's apparently one of the best characters in this movie, so I might just watch it for him. But if you haven't seen After We Collide, it doesn't matter. It's just the story I just told you. It's basically the story where you just have somebody who's so emotionally immature and toxic and bad for you. And then this other guy who's like amazing in every single way. But you're like, no, but what about no, do not. I don't get how Mason's even still on the table. I don't get how Mason's still on the table. But, you know who I am interested to be on the table with? Ava. That's not how I wanted to word that. Ava. Ava is on the table. Even though I feel like there's not enough scenes. I feel like they just like forced that storyline because they know that like Pixelberry, the company who does choices, like usually gives some sort of like gay option for just like inclusivity. I don't think that needed to be in the story. Because there's never really any sort of like development scenes with Ava and the main character. Like there were some in the beginning when they were friends, but now that Ava has made her feelings clear and she's like clearly into the main character, there's no like times, even when the main character is by herself, to like think about it. She's just sort of like, oh, I guess I have to figure out my feelings about Ava, and then she never does. She never does. She still doesn't even know if she's bi, gay. She doesn't know if she's attracted to women. And then she still wants to like be jealous of Ava, but then there's no real option to like pursue a relationship with her. And it's just a whole thing. But it's clear from Ava's like conversations that the option will be there in the future. Because there's a lot of like narration that like alludes to there being like something later. I don't really think that I want to pursue that storyline because it looks like it's going to be heavily underdeveloped. And I'd rather just hang out with Jackson. who's so much more interesting. I was really looking forward to this being a no diamond story run. There's many stories where I just commit myself to using no diamonds because I'm like, no, I need to use it to get diamonds so I can spend it on the books that I really like. But then there was the option to go bowling with Jackson's sister, and I was like, fine, I will give you diamonds because I love Hazel. I love her so much. So I now use diamonds on this book. I did not want to because the story is stupid and there's no content in it at all. All the chapters are so short, but I love Jackson. And he is my favorite character. He's so interesting and so fun. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the full rundown of how I feel about this story. It's not done though. The story is not done at all. We're at chapter like 67 and we're waiting for the next one. I don't know when the next one comes out and I don't know how many chapters there are. I hope I can eventually make some sort of decision because I swear every single time that there is an option to be like, oh, I can flirt with Mason or I can just brush him off. I brush him off. Oh, I can choose to go to this thing with Mason or with Jackson. I choose Jackson. Like, I choose Jackson every single fucking time, and yet I still need to deal with these feelings for Mason that are not real. I think that I should just be able to just hang out with Jackson and not have to deal with Mason at all. And Mason's leaving to go to the army. Ugh. He's gonna go to the army on a football scholarship? Disgusting. I just think, I don't know how I can see somebody in Mason's position with all of his like class privilege and just entitlement and be attracted to that. Like, no, not when Jackson's right there with all of his like humbleness and like self-confidence. Like, Mason has none of that, and I don't know why I would ever be interested. But I have to be. There's also this whole personal storyline of me being a photographer. I think it's stupid. Oh, no, wait. We gotta get into this for a second. This story was even more cliche at the very beginning when I was a cheerleader. I was like a head cheerleader, and like I was in love with the two guys on the football team. So boring. But like the main character has this whole revelation that she's only into cheer because her dead mom was like a cheerleader and she wanted to like be with her mom. So when like she finally reached the peak of being a cheerleader, she was like, oh, I don't like this anymore. Even though like you would think you would invest so much time into being a cheerleader, even if you don't like it, you would just follow through with it because you're like invested. I don't know. I don't get it. But the bitchiest thing that she did was like literally the second after she got everything that she wanted out of the cheer team, like in the middle of the season, she was like, okay, I quit. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, even if you have this whole like self-revelation of like, oh, I don't want to be a cheerleader anymore, this is not my passion. Like, you don't just quit the team in the middle of the season. They're gonna go on to competitions. You need to like support your team, even if you don't like love it. You've invested all this time and the team needs you. Like, that's such, I just thought that was a really fucked up thing for her to do. But now she's a photographer and she has like a bunch of drama with like this girl who used to be on the cheer team. I'm not gonna get into her, she's not important. And then there's all of that. But I'm mostly just in the story to hang out with Jackson because he's interesting. He's interesting. I think that the wildest part about this story is that I have literally not spent a single moment alone with Mason. I did that one thing at the party like 50 chapters ago, and that was like it. But like, I've actively hooked up with Jackson on multiple occasions, and there's still some sort of like idea that I'm choosing Mason, and I'm like, what? I'm basically dating Jackson. I've very much chosen him to be the person that I hang out with and the person that I want to be with. But Mason's still somehow on the table. Mason's still somehow here in the corner, just like butting in. And I'm like, no. In what world have I given you any signals that I am interested? That blows my mind. That's what I think is the weirdest, funniest part about the story, is that they have to like sort of write it as this love triangle, even if you are not, like, you're ignoring one point of the triangle completely. I'm like, I don't know how Mason thinks that he has a chance at all, but who knows? Maybe they'll do a full 180 in the later chapters. I doubt it though. Maybe I'll do another video on this when the story ends, but I was just really fucked up about the whole police brutality storyline. I really need to talk about it. I was worried I wouldn't have enough to say, and yet I just keep talking. I'm gonna make a video about Super Bloom eventually. I know I said I was gonna make one about Ashton's album. and I just have not had the time to listen to it like most musicians that I like. I'll get into it eventually. If you play Choices, let me know. Have you played the storyline? Apparently a lot of people don't like it. Is it because you also hate Mason? Let me know. Do you like Mason? For why? I would like to know if anyone is romancing Mason. I would like to know why. Because in my mind, he's very not interesting. Is it race dependent? If you chose Mason and Jackson to be different races, do you think that has affected your opinion of these characters? Because I think it has affected my opinion of these characters. Just let me know. I'll be here, hating Mason.